Hey there everybody, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Questions and Answers. It's Sunday morning, March the 17th. Sorry it's been a couple of weeks since we last did Questions and Answers, but as you have seen by all the programming I've been posting, I've been a pretty busy guy. So I'm trying to get to a lot of different type of shows and content for you. And, shooting this Questions and Answers show, not only is it an hour plus to record, but there's some prep time that goes into it and, plus the time to get it posted and everything. So it's easily like a half a day ordeal. So I had a little bit of time this weekend, so I figured I'd squeeze this in. So let's kick it off here. Our first question from Lonnie VR. Lonnie asks, I want to risk asking something to you before I watch this week's video. How about a history and or top 10 albums by Golden Earring? They've touched on many different styles of music in their long career, and the original guys are still in the band. Keep up the good work. You know what? I think we can do that for you. So add that to my to-do list. Golden Earring. By the way, I wanted to mention to my Canadian fans and friends who have loved the recent Max Webster and Saga top 10 shows list, and I've gotten all sorts of questions and asks for more Canadian bands. I think I'm going to do Moxie as well. You know, they don't have a lot of albums, but I can certainly pull together a top 10 songs. And Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush. Absolutely. I actually got like a half a dozen requests for that over the last 24 hours. So definitely going to add those to my list. All right, next question from Forrest20. Question, have you given a fair listen to these bands? Echo and the Bunnymen, The Fix, and Killing Joke. If you haven't, I think you may be surprised. Okay, so I like The Fix. I actually was kind of like The Fix, but just never, bothered to get any of their stuff. And I remember a lot of their radio hits and what have you. And then on a recent radio show from my buddy Jeff Young from Megadeth, he played Stand or Fall by The Fix. And I was listening to it. This was, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. And I was like, holy crap, I forgot how much I liked that song. So I went and listened to a couple other Fix songs. I'm like, you know what? I always really like this band. And my buddy Dave Kime is a huge Fix fan. He's been trying to get me into them for years. So I went out and got a really good compilation, like a retrospective anthology, whatever the hell you call it. It's got like 20 songs on it. It's got all the songs I dig and a bunch of other tunes that I never heard before that I really like. So I kind of big into The Fix at the moment. Echo and the Bunnymen, they don't really do a lot for me. Never really have. I even went and listened to a bunch of their songs yesterday. And Killing Joke, I just never liked Killing Joke. I went and bought a couple Killing Joke albums a bunch of years ago, and they just did nothing for me. So you can't like everything, right? From Robert, Out of Mind X. I hear people talk about Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Budgie, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin as early pioneers of heavy metal or proto-heavy metal. However, I feel a few bands get overlooked, that being Scorpions, who came out in Germany in 1965, and Blue Cheer. What is your take on Scorpions and Blue Cheer? Well, I've talked about Scorpions a lot on this show. I absolutely love the 70s material from the Scorpions. So important, so different. That first album, Lonesome Crow with Michael Schenker, great, heavy, psychedelic blues rock album with blistering guitar work from a then, 15 at the time, I think, Michael Schenker. Fly to the Rainbow, In Trance, Virgin Killer, Taken by Force, the Tokyo Tapes album, Uli John Roth. That is some of the most groundbreaking stuff ever. And again, so different for the time. So ahead of its time. I love that stuff. The early, mid-80s stuff is really cool too, but I have found, and I was totally into that back in the day. Like Blackout and Animal Magnetism and Love Drive and Love at First Sting and stuff. I find I listen less to those albums, although Love Drive I still love quite a bit. But like Animal Magnetism, Blackout, and Love at First Sting, I don't listen to as much as I used to. For some reason, they haven't held up, with me anyway, as well as some of the Uli John Roth stuff, which I just absolutely dig. As far as Blue Cheer goes, hell yeah. I mean, those first two Blue Cheer albums were pretty damn heavy for the time. You're talking like late 60s. So you absolutely, when you talk about the early days of, hard rock or heavy metal, you have to talk about Blue Cheer. They just had this kind of like bulldozing, sound to them with all this feedback and distortion and fuzz, right? The problem with Blue Cheer is they couldn't really sustain it. Now, I'm telling you, Blue Cheer released a whole bunch of albums in the like early to mid 70s. that were totally different than those first two albums. They weren't heavy at all. They kind of mixed, like, you know, it was almost like Steppenwolf type of stuff mixed with a little, almost like southern rock, acid rock, and pop, and just real kind of like Americana type stuff, but, you know, a little more hard rocking. Very different from those first two albums, but very cool. Different lineups on every album and stuff like that. So if you haven't discovered like the Blue Cheer, you know, post Vincibus Eruptus stuff, I recommend you checking it out. It's very different, though. So if you're expecting that kind of wall of fuzz and feedback like on the first album and even a bit of the second album, you're going to be disappointed. But if you know, good early 70s rock, definitely worth checking out. From John Hodgkin. It's Sunday morning, as it is. You've just had a hard week working. The sun is, excuse me, glinting through the trees. You open the windows, pour yourself a large cold beer. Well, I don't know if I'd be doing that on a Sunday morning, but anyway. And settle down on the couch for some serious chill out time. What do you put on the hi-fi to truly chill out? I mean, you know, you could say almost anything here. I thought about, you know, some King Crimson or some Genesis or whatever. But I think for me, the perfect Sunday morning kind of chill out music is Miles Davis. So I'm going to reach for like Bitches Brew or Sketches of Spain or Jack Johnson or Kinda Blue in a Silent Way. That's what I'm going to pull out to really just chill out, put my arms back and just like kind of, you know, soak in the day. That's a great start to the day to listen to Miles Davis. Good question. From Knicks Texans fans number 1. Hey Pete, I know I say it every week, but love the vids and appreciate you always getting to my questions. You're very welcome. So in Deadhead Land, we often have debates about what Robert Hunter or John Perry Barlow meant with certain lyrics because they are often not set in stone and widely open to interpretation. One that always rouses my thoughts is from Throwing Stones. The quote is, "Heartless powers try to tell us what to think. In the spirit sleeping, then the flesh is ink." Now, I know you're neither a Deadhead or a big lyric guy, but what's your interpretation of that line? Would love to hear your thoughts. Knicks Texans fans, I haven't a fucking clue. I don't know. I mean, you know, heartless powers try to tell us what to think. I mean, that's just kind of like that. That just screams, you know, like the government and the powers that be trying to tell the sheep what to do and how to do it, right? Because we all should, you know, because half of this world don't seem to have minds of their own. And they're willing to follow whatever the flavor of the month is. So, you know, that kind of rings very true today. As far as if the spirit's sleeping, then the flesh is ink, I have no idea what that means. Your guess is as good as mine, my friend. From Mikael Thorin. Hi, Pete. Love your channel and don't miss a video. Good, you should not. And go back and look at all the old ones. I'm a 58-year-old man, ex-musician from the 80s, and a total nerd of music. My big heroes have always been Genesis, Yes, and that kind of stuff. Today, I'm a huge Porcupine Tree fan. Your channel makes me visiting the old stuff again, and I'm so thankful for that. I've noticed that the older I get, the harder music I like. What's that? Yeah, it happens, right? I'm ending this with a question. Which band or music changed your life? Cheers, Mr. Pardo. You're the best. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I think I've been asked this question numerous times before and answered it, but I'm going to answer it again. As far as the bands that just changed my life, early on it was Kiss, but then a few years later, the band that really just changed my life forever was Black Sabbath. That Sabbath just kind of put me on a trajectory of just really enjoying heavy music that, you know, has lasted the rest of my life. So we're looking at late 70s, right? So it's now 2019. So, but, you know, and then if you're going to talk like prog stuff, I mean, you know, like Yes and Genesis just kind of changed things for me. You know, Gentle Giant made me rediscover or discover music that was so far off the beaten path from a commercial aspect. So I'm forever indebted to all those bands. Deep Purple too. I mean, it's just, you know, some bands that just really changed everything for me. From Eric Berg, love the channel. You've introduced me to a lot of great stuff. That's what it's all about. Haven't heard you mention these bands and wanted to get your thoughts. Apologies if you talked about them already. If you aren't familiar, I highly recommend them all. The Master's Apprentices. Yes, I've actually discussed them. In fact, I featured Master's Apprentices, I believe, on my top hard rock albums of the 70s, the Underground, either part 1 or 2 shows. God, man, they put out a couple killer albums. You know, the early kind of poppy stuff I really not that into, but they became a serious hard rock band with some progressive leanings later on in their career. Flower Traveling Band. Yeah, I have one of their albums. I don't know how many they had, right? I don't think they had too many. I have one of them. I like it. I don't love it. It's okay. It's kind of weird. Weed, actually, if you haven't seen my Forgotten Favorite show that I just did like 2 weeks ago, go look at it in the playlist there. I just posted it 2 weeks ago. In fact, if you look at the little image of the video, you'll see me holding up the Weed CD. I actually like that quite a bit. It's basically, you know, Ken Hensley with a bunch of German guys cranking out a killer hard rock album that sounds just like Uriah Heep to me. Lighthouse, I dig Lighthouse. I'm a sucker for, like, you know, rock bands with horns, you know, from that era, like the late 60s, early 70s. I dig Lighthouse a lot. And High Tide, yeah, I think I've talked about High Tide also on one of those top hard rock albums of the 70s, the Underground shows. I dig High Tide, another really, really great band from that era. From Tom Astrander. Hi, Pete, called me crazy, but I really like the first 2 albums by Rex Smith as the band Rex before he went mainstream. Have you heard them? Hell yeah. Those albums kick ass, dude. It's a shame that they're out of print on CD because I've been looking to scoop those up for years, and every time I look, they're like $100 if you can find any, right? So I am not willing to spend that kind of money on a CD. But yeah, man, Rex Smith and the Boys. An interesting little tidbit. Rex Smith's brother is actually the singer from Stars, right? Which is pretty cool. But yeah, I will continue to be looking out for those because, man, those first 2 Rex albums are pretty damn crunchy. From Richard W. Love your channel, Pete. I don't know if this has been asked before, but have you heard the band One Shot from France? Dark Shot is a great album. Yeah, they are a good band. I actually have one of their albums laying around here. Basically, and a couple guys from Magma. Okay, a little Magma offshoot band, and thankfully they don't sound like Magma. I'm sorry, guys, I just can't get into Magma. Musically, I think they're very, very good. I just can't get into the singing, man. It just drives me nuts. And what I always liked about One Shot is that they basically they take like the fusion aspects of Magma, and that's what they do. So very, very cool. From Zachary Newman. Hey, Pete, how about a Manfred Mann top 10 or best to worst album? Personally, I love The Roaring Silence and Watch. Keep up the good stuff. Cheers. Yeah, I like that. I am writing it down as we speak. I am a big fan of the Earth Band. And there's a lot of great albums and a lot of great material, so I'll do one or the other. All right, so good question. From John Elton. John Elton? Elton John? Great channel, informative and entertaining. Have you reviewed any Atomic Rooster albums, 10 Years After and or Moxie? I mean, I've discussed all 3. I know I mentioned Atomic Rooster in my, hard rock albums of the 70s, one of those shows. 10 Years After I've talked about quite a bit. And Moxie I have mentioned as well. In fact, I think I talked about Moxie also on Underground albums of the 70s. But you know what? Let's give them all some rub. So I'm going to add them to my list too. So Atomic Rooster, TYA, and Moxie I already had. So thanks for that. From Captain Howdy. Would you do a history of, or a top 10 of Molly Hatchet or Pantera? Yeah, I'm a big Molly Hatchet fan. So I will do Molly Hatchet. And you know what? We'll add Pantera to the list as well. Maybe I'll have my buddy Butch Jones join me on that because I know he's a fan. What else? From Woo Bainu. Question. How can you love Yes and Kiss? One guy can play bass and one guy sticks his tongue out. I mean, come on. You're talking apples to oranges here. You know, they're totally different. You can like both, love both. You know, Kiss is what they are. You know, when I was a 10-year-old kid, man, they were the greatest thing ever. I still love the early Kiss stuff, big time. Yes is a different beast. It's you go to each for 2 different things. You know, it's like someone can love, you know, Miles Davis and Pantera. You get different enjoyments out of each one. Each one is appropriate for different, however you're feeling and stuff like that. So you can, that's kind of a strange question. Of course you can love both. This is probably either the greatest or worst YouTube name from any of my viewers I think that I've seen in the 4+ years I've been doing this show. From Spaghetti Lee L. Douchebag. Dude, where did you come up with that? Pete, what's your opinion on the up-and-coming Zappa hologram tour? Do you have an opinion on holograms in general? Are we theoretically going to see dead musicians performing again? Thanks, from Spaghetti Lee. Dude, that name. My God. What is my opinion on the Zappa hologram tour? I will tell you, the band they've assembled for that is dynamite. You know, Mike Keneally leading the charge there. Mike's a great guy, awesome musician. The rest of the guys, and a bunch of guys who used to play with Zappa, some serious playing going to go on that. But they're not getting my money. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go see the Zappa hologram thing. I'm not going to go see the Dio thing. These guys are gone. I don't think either one of these guys would appreciate a tour being rolled out with them up there as a hologram. I'm just against it. All right. So that's just me. I know there's going to be people who are going to go check this out and think it's like really, really cool. I never saw Frank when he was alive, and I really wish I did. But I don't have any interest in it. To me, it just seems like a cash grab and just kind of weird and creepy. So that's just me. From Dario Gillen, nice show. You know a lot of stuff. Does everybody know Deep Purple album sales figures? Who's that a question for? Does everybody? I don't know. Do they? Do I? I mean, yeah. I mean, are you asking if we can find that out? Yeah. I mean, just go to. I believe you can go to their Wikipedia page and you can find out what all the the certified album sales are for all of those. I mean, come on. Purple in their heyday sold a shitload of albums, quite a lot. In recent years, obviously, it's not quite as good, but yeah, Deep Purple has sold a lot of albums, my friend. You can find this information out there. From Anno Forte, hi Pete, great show. Wondering whether you feel that any of the following albums are worthy of comment and sharing with your increasingly wide audience. The Edgar Winter Group, They Only Come Out at Night from '72 with Ronnie Montrose and Rick Derringer. Well, I mean, that's a classic, right? Obviously, that's a great album. Widowmaker's debut album from 1976. Yes, that is a very good kind of little supergroup. I urge everybody to check that album out. Good hard rock album. Billion Dollar Babies, Battle Axe from '77, the Alice Cooper Band. That's a very, very solid album. That's that's the band. They basically formed that band after the Muscle of Love album, so it's minus Alice and minus Glenn Buxton. Really strong album. I like it. Tiger, Going Down Laughing with Big Jim Sullivan. I had never heard that before. I went and listened to it on YouTube last night. It's okay. Kind of proggy, kind of weird in spots. There's some cool musicianship on it. Didn't overly love that. Rough Diamond debut from 1977 with David Byron and Clem Clemson. That's a very good album. Another kind of little supergroup that just kind of really fizzled, but that's a really good album. I urge you to check that out. And then Wishbone Ash, There's the Rub. I'm a big fan of that album. I love Wishbone Ash. And I think that the Laurie Weisfield era of the band, great guitar player, also pretty good singer. I think that all those albums that he did with the band are really, really strong and very underrated. There's the Rub is awesome. So, good question. From Eyes of Frozen Meat. Just found your channel. Good stuff. Have you heard of the band Tintin before? Specifically their Astral Taxi album. Excellent from start to finish. Highly, highly recommended. I got to tell you, I went online and I listened to the whole thing last night. I did not care for it. It's just kind of like, to me, it was just really mellow and wishy-washy, and I honestly, I appreciate if you love it, and I was really looking for something great on it, and it just did absolutely nothing for me. So, sorry. From Aaron Magram, I remember you mentioned you were just getting into XTC. For not being too much of a new wave guy, sorry if I'm incorrect on that assessment. No, you're correct. I'm not a huge new wave guy. Just curious of your thoughts of them, since they often get associated with new wave, although the songs are much more melodic and interesting than most, and they evolve quite a bit over the years, of course. Any albums you like, keep up the great videos, and I especially love these Q&As. Yeah, I mean, XTC, kind of a weird band, because they're sort of new wave. They're sort of pop. They have a little punk vibe, well, especially their earlier stuff. It's very punk influenced. A little proggy in spots. They don't fit into any genre. And quite frankly, if you want to just call their music weird, I totally agree with that, because a lot of it is. But I went and bought most of their catalog, and I've been, excuse me a second, and I've been really listening to them and really trying to, and the problem is every album's got so many fucking songs, right? So it's like, there's just so much material to dig into. So it's taken me a long time to really warm up to. I'm starting to warm up to certain albums. So some of the ones that I'm liking a lot, and again, I bought a whole bunch of them. I like the Drums and Wires album, English Settlement, Black Sea, Mummer, Skylocking, Oranges and Lemons, Non-Such, and the 25 O'Clock album, which is that kind of like little psychedelic thing they did, not under the XTC name, but it's basically XTC. That's actually pretty cool. So again, I'm liking them. I'm still listening to them. I'm still, I'm basically what I'm doing. I'm liking certain tracks and things like that. It's one of those bands that I almost wonder if it would have been better if I just went and got like a really good 2 CD compilation. Which a lot of times is what I'll do first, and then I'm like, oh my god, this is great, and then I get rid of that and I go buy the whole catalog. Well, I did the opposite this time. I went and got most of the catalog before doing that, and it's taken me a really long time to kind of get into all this stuff. So, whatever, but I'm going to keep going at it because there's a lot that I like, musicianship-wise. There's some great stuff and great textures going out there. Vocals are kind of all over the place. The styles are all over the place. So we'll see. I'm going to keep going. I'm sure it'll continue to warm up to me, So from Steve Syme, always love these Q&As, Pete. I know they're not right in your musical wheelhouse, but any interest in thoughts on 70s power pop, Godfather's Big Star? Yeah, I dig Big Star. I have a good compilation of theirs that has a lot of really great tunes on there. I kind of, Big Star for me is kind of like, Raspberries, a little bit of the more poppy Stars, that sort of. They were really good bands. I mean, not as Metallica Stars, but I dig Big Star. Good tunes, right? Again, one of those bands that just kind of had a brief moment in the light and then, they're gone. But some good tunes there. Good pop band. Good power pop band. From Earl Joy. Pete, what's your take on the original Moody Blues compared to the more famous version of the band? So I don't know what you mean by the original Moody Blues or the more famous version. So for me, the original Moody Blues, are you talking about the Denny Lane era? The very, very, very original, quick, there in a second, gone in 2 seconds, Moody Blues with Denny Lane? I'm not really into that. Now, for me, the more famous version is, the band that did, Nights in White Satin and all those glorious late 60s, early 70s albums. Or are you talking about, the Moody Blues that had a couple big hits like in the late 70s, early 80s? So I'm not really sure what you're talking about here. But for me, I like that classic era Moody Blues the best. Okay, so all those early albums, Days of Future Past and all that kind of stuff. That for me, that's the classic Moody Blues. From Anconia's Place. Hey, Pete, what are your thoughts on the John Payne era Asia albums Aqua, Aria, Arena, Aura, and Silent Nation? Love to get your thoughts. I think I have most of those. Yeah, they're solid. I even saw them. They played that band, so it was Jeff Downes, John Payne, and Christ, I don't even remember who else was in the band at the time, but they played at a local like Barnes & Noble or Borders Books, like, Jesus, 10, 15 years ago. Here in Hudson Valley. I think it was in Poughkeepsie or Wappingers Falls or something like that. And I went to watch it. They just played a little set, and they did a big meet and greet. So I got to meet, Jeff Downes and John. John's a very nice guy, by the way, as is Jeff. And God, I can't remember who else was playing with them. Steve Howe wasn't in the lineup at the time. And honestly, I don't remember. And those are solid albums. Calling it Asia was a stretch for me, but solid, good, kind of proggy AOR hard rock albums. Good stuff. I mean, I like them. You can't fault any of them. They're not spectacular, but they're very good, very solid, great vocals, nice keyboards, good hooks, all that sort of stuff. Not quite as, hooky as the classic first 2 Asia albums, but kind of along the same era, a little bit proggier, maybe a little bit more hard rock elements. Good stuff. From Alan Ball, hey Pete, loving the channel, keep up the great work. What are your thoughts on Glam, like T-Rex, Joe Brya, etc., etc.? T-Rex is not bad. I like T-Rex. I'm not a huge Glam fan, but I do like some bands in that kind of genre. Joe Bryeth, I should say. I've never heard of or never listened to. Sweet, I like Sweet. Their early stuff is kind of glammy, and then they became more of a hard rock band. Obviously, I love the glam era of David Bowie. I like a lot of the Mott the Hoople stuff. I like Roxy Music, okay? Silverhead, very underappreciated band in the glam era there. So I do like some of that stuff. Again, not a huge fan, but I do like a lot of that, 70s glam. Pretty cool. So from Raymond Kaiser, what's up, Raymond? Pete, what is your take on the entire controversy over whether Patrick Mraz was an actual member of the Moody Blues or just a hired hand, as the group says? Mraz was featured in all photos of the band, listed on all albums, and featured in their videos. How do you feel about the resulting lawsuit to settle the matter after they let him go? I mean, I don't know. I don't have any inside information or anything like that. So, who am I to say whether he was an actual member of the band or not? He was in the Moody Blues. how he was contractually, a member or just a sideman, or I couldn't tell you. Is it any different than his role in Yes? He was in Moody Blues obviously a lot longer, but was he ever like a true member of Yes either? I don't know. So it's kind of like a he said, she said type of thing. So I really can't have an opinion because I, again, was not part of it. Just kind of like you, looking from the outside in. It's a shame, though, because to all of us, it seemed like Mraz was a full-fledged member of the band for all those years. So, he should be treated as such. But, again, I don't know all the intricacies of the situation. From John McAlar, hi, Pete. You have an amazing memory for the history of music. Really enjoy your videos. Ever hear of Haywire from my home province, Prince Edward Island, and another Canadian band called Zon? I have never listened to either one of them till yesterday. So I listened to a bunch of the Haywire tunes. Kind of poppy. That didn't do a lot for me. Zon, on the other hand, was quite good. Quite proggy. And some good hard rock elements as well. Looks like that CD, though, is like long out of print, if you can even get it. And I will be keeping an eye out for that, though. The Zon, quite good. I like that a lot. From Luis Roberto, hello, Mr. Pardo. 3 questions. Luis, you're killing me. Guys, you got to limit to 1 or 2 questions tops. Re-recorded albums. Do you agree? Some bands did that. Girl School, Hit and Run, Wasp, Crimson Idol, Re-Idolize, Camel, The Snow Goose, Manowar, Battle Hymns, Manowar, Kings of Metal, Jethro Tull, Too Old to Rock and Roll. When did Jethro Tull re-record that album? I don't remember that happening. LA Guns, Cocked and Loaded, Twisted Sister, Still Hungry. I do not think that's a good idea. Well, I will tell you, I haven't listened to any of these. So, there are bands that do that. I know Saxon did that. Saxon, re-recorded, a bunch of their older classic tunes. And I know some of these. I've heard of some of these. I don't know. Is it really necessary? Probably not. And considering, a lot of these albums that you're listening here are, classic either metal or prog or whatever, they were classic at the time for a reason, right? So why re-record them? I don't know. So it doesn't make much sense. In fact, some of these bands, Twisted Sister, I could care less about. LA Guns, I could care less about. Manowar, I like some of their early stuff, but I didn't know the Snow Goose, the Camel re-recorded the Snow Goose. Wasp, I haven't listened to Wasp in a million years. Girl School, but I don't remember Jethro Tull re-recording Too Old to Rock and Roll. Are you sure that just wasn't just like a remix? I think that might have been a remix. I don't think they re-recorded that, but I could be wrong. Next question from Luis. Did you watch any Dream Theater show with Charlie Dominici? In other words, did I see Dream Theater with him in the band? No. And then his last question. What is the most frightening movie of Brian De Palma, in your opinion? This is like the 3rd time I've been asked this question. You guys loved Brian De Palma. I don't find any of his movies frightening. I love a lot of his movies, but they're not frightening. I would have to say the most kind of unsettling movie is probably Dressed to Kill. Okay. From Luxy Gold. What would you recommend someone buying starting off a CD collection, like a must-have? I love Deep Purple, Rainbow, Sabbath, Dio, Scorpions. Just trying to start a collection. I love your work. Keep it rocking. All right, so I don't really understand if you're asking me what you should buy as far as CDs of those bands or in general. This could take forever. I'm really not sure what you're asking here. If you're asking about those bands and you want to start a CD collection of those bands, I'm assuming you should be well familiar with them, right? But Rainbow Rising, Deep Purple and Rock, Deep Purple Machine Head, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath self-titled Heaven and Hell, Master of Reality Volume 4, Mob Rules, Scorpions, Virgin Killer, In Trance, Taken by Force, Holy Diver by Dio. Again, I'm probably not answering your question correctly, but if I'm not, and you're just looking for other similar type bands to jump into, watch some of my shows about underground hard rock and metal, or the from the 70s, because I talk about a lot of that type of stuff. From Richard Filmer. Hi there, Pete. After many years of searching, I finally got a hold of the Allan Holdsworth mini album Road Games. Stunning album featuring Jeff Berlin on bass and Chad Wackerman on drums. Also has some guest vocals from the late, great Jack Bruce. Your thoughts on the album? That's a great one. I mean, you can't go wrong with any Holdsworth from that era, right? Road Games is awesome. I think that might actually... I'm trying to think if that was the first Holdsworth I ever got, or was it Metal Fatigue? One or the other. I mean, they came out kind of right around the same time. But they're both awesome, both worth having. And yeah, I mean, God, Holdsworth was just an otherworldly guy. What a musician, right? From Steve Morris. I've just recently discovered your channel. Great content. Are you a Slade fan? And if so, is there any way you could do a Slade top 10 song show? Again, another question I've been asked numerous times and answered. I'm not a Slade fan. I keep trying, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you don't like Slade. You like all this other stuff. every time I go and I listen to tons of Slade stuff, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't know what it is about that band. Nothing I've listened to has tilted the meter for me to want to go explore them more. Like I said, you can't like everything, right? I know Slade are very big with a lot of people. They never really became big here, but like I said, I've been trying to give them a chance, and I've listened to a bunch of their early albums and stuff, and it's just, man, it just doesn't really do anything for me. So, sorry. So, it wouldn't make sense for me to do a top 10 show, right? And I don't own any of the stuff, and I'm just, I'm not much of a fan. From Lonnie, VR. Another one. Non-musical question. What is your dream car? Mine is a Lamborghini. I think I own my dream car. I've never been a sports car guy, ever. They don't do anything for me. I've always been kind of like a nice, big, manly SUV type of guy. And for almost 5 years ago, I went and bought a Toyota 4Runner. I love it. It's the best vehicle I've ever had. I just love everything about it. That's my dream car. So when it comes to vehicles, I'm kind of a simple guy. From Gazin at the Moon. Gazing at the Moon. I get you now. Hi, Pete. Just stumbled across your channel. Really enjoying it. Have you heard of the bands Love, Ultimate Spinach, Gandalf, or Electric Prunes of the 60s? Have you thought about doing a favorite soundtrack? A couple come to mind for me. They would be Ramin Djawadi, Game of Thrones, and Jason Hill, Mindhunter series on Netflix. Excellent show and incorporates some great 70s music in it as well. I know you're not much of a fan of alternative rock, but what did you think of Candlebox's debut Candlebox album? If these questions were already asked, sorry. I've only watched a few videos. Hold on. All right, so let's go back. So I like the band Love. I have their first 2 albums. It's good stuff. I mean, great 60s psychedelic pop, right? Ultimate Spinach, I've heard of, never listened to. Gandalf, I've never listened to. Electric Prunes, I've heard some stuff here and there. That's pretty decent. I've gotten many questions about doing favorite soundtracks. I don't collect soundtracks, so I'm not the right guy to do that. And as far as Candlebox, a couple of good tunes, but they don't really do a hell of a lot for me. I actually saw them live in Baltimore, Maryland, like, was it 2 years ago? Something like that. They're still out there playing. From our buddy Scalagrimmer Kevoldfulson. Oh my God, I screw your name up every week. Hi Pete, thank you for another great Q&A. My question for the next show. Do you know the music in your collection so well that you can identify any album without seeing it if somebody played it to you without saying what it is? I certainly could not, referring to my own collection, and I'm not so happy about that. So in other words, do the blindfold test, someone puts something on. I mean, I've got 8,000 plus CDs, man. So there's bound to be plenty of stuff here that you're going to put on and going to be like, yeah, I kind of know what it is. I may know the bands. I may, it all depends because some stuff we know better than others. I have plenty of stuff here that I have in my collection that I don't know as intimately as others. So I'm sure people, you could put something on. I'd be kind of like, yeah, I kind of know what that is. I probably do pretty well. But yeah, you're gonna find stuff that I have and that I haven't listened to a hell of a lot or in a long time. So. Interesting question, though. From the Dallas Space Cowboy. Hey, Pete, hope you're doing well. 2 questions for you this week. What are your thoughts on all the AC/DC rumors we've been hearing since last fall? I know I'm pumped. Again, another question I've been asked numerous times in the last couple of weeks. Guys, you got to watch these shows because a lot of you are, you're not watching the shows and you're just adding questions. So, yeah, I'm psyched for it. I think it's a good thing that Brian Johnson is back in the band and Phil Rudd and Cliff Williams. So that's, that's of the guys that are alive. That's the classic band, right? So for me, Axel Rose and AC/DC is like an abomination, although a lot of people said he did a good job. I'm not an Axel fan, so for me, but Brian got to be back where he belongs, right? And I think they're doing an album, which is very cool. So I'm all for it. Not to get on a soapbox, but I'm a young man who loves a lot of older music, and I'm pretty damn jealous of guys like you who actually got to grow up with rock and metal in its heyday. My question is, do you think the youth will ever be interested in rock again? Will it ever be popular in the mainstream again? Well, I mean, youth is still interested in rock. I mean, come on, go out to, if you go to concerts, if you go to see bands live, I know there's a lot of people who just don't go to shows anymore, and they watch shit on YouTube, but come on, guys, you got to get out there, support the bands. There's a lot of young people at a lot of these rock concerts. I mean, seriously. The problem is it's not mainstream in that rock albums are selling, millions of albums and maybe at the top of the charts. Because, come on, stop. The Billboard charts is just garbage. I mean, that's, it's hit radio is just garbage. It's just the same recycled shit over and over, you know, the flavor of the month, whatever. The rock bands are doing okay for themselves. Rock is not dead. And there's a lot of young kids. I mean, I go to a lot of hard rock and metal shows. There's a lot of kids there at these shows. It's not all old farts like me. You know, you go to see a lot of the metal bands that are playing. You know, I mean, Christ, go to a Children of Bodom show or something. Go to a Megadeth show. There's a lot of young kids. You know, Christ, I'm going to see Dream Theater in the very near future. A lot of young kids go to see Dream Theater. Kids who are like musicians and, you know, wanting some really good music to latch onto. So rock is not dead. It may not be mainstream, you know, featured at the Grammy Awards or, you know, on the Billboard charts. But, you know, I mean, look at the new Rival Sons album. Everybody's talking about Rival Sons. Everybody's talking about Greta Van Fleet. I mean, come on, rock is not dead. You know, maybe not million selling stuff, but it's out there. These bands are touring. There's people going to see them. Christ, I saw Elton John 2 weeks ago. There were a lot of young kids there, in addition to a lot of the old people like me. So, there was, you know, and maybe they got into Elton John because of their parents, but that's the thing. If the parents are still listening to the music, they pass that down to the kids. And, you know, a lot of young people still going to see shows and listening to rock. So don't give up. Don't give up. Dallas Space Cowboy. From Jeff882. Maybe with the recent death of Paul O'Neill, Savatage should reform. Paul O'Neill is the driving force behind TSO. You know, I've talked to my good friend Chris Caffrey numerous times about that, and he hopes it happens, but it's just been so long, you know. I don't know. I'm actually hoping to have Chris on the show in the coming weeks, so that's a question I will pose to him. From Mr. Amazing. Hey, Pete, love your channel. Wondering if you like the blues. If so, who are some of your favorite performers? Again, are you not watching any of these Q&A shows? I've been asked this question numerous times the last couple weeks, and I've answered it. Some of my favorite bluesmen, Buddy Guy, Mike Bloomfield from the older crew. Current ones, Joe Bonamassa, Eric Gales, Walter Trapp, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. I also love Stevie Ray Vaughan, Philip Sacey. A lot of really good blues players out there. A lot of them. Walter Trapp, whew, what a killer player he is, huh? And I'm going to see Bonamassa this summer. I just got tickets, actually. From All Media Reviews, blogspot.com. Hey, Pete, thanks again for answering my questions about Stack Ridge. I'll have to pass this video along to my friend. Oddly, I only vaguely know them, but have meant to listen to them more in depth for ages. My questions for the week. Any interest in top 10 history of or best to worst albums video for Marillion and Fate's Warning? I love both bands to bits. I actually have Marillion on my list to do, and I'm going to add Fate's Warning to that as well. All right? Because, well, I warn you, I am mostly a fan of the Fish era Marillion. I do like the first couple albums with Mr. Hogarth. I honestly have not liked any Marillion album in quite a long time. I find much of their material over the last, 15 years pretty snooze-inducing, but I love the early stuff, and I do like those first bunch of albums with Hogarth. Next question from All Media. Also, what is your take on Crimson Glory? I am one of those people who find Transcendence fully deserving of its status as a cult classic. I mean, come on, those first two Crimson Glory albums are great, right? I'm a big fan. Man, those vocals by Midnight, the blistering guitar work, and anthem after anthem after anthem. Great stuff. Yeah, I'm a big Crimson Glory fan. From Arnaud B. What's going on, Arnaud? Hey, Pete, what do you think of Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell from '77? I love it. I grew up on that album, so I still dig it. You know, there's a couple tunes on there that I probably don't need to hear much anymore, but man, you can put the title track on any day of the week, and it gets me going. How about that guitar playing from Todd Rundgren, huh? Woo! How about doing a show on your favorite rhythm sections, bass and drums, and prog, jazz, fusion, and metal? Ugh. You know, I'm more of a guitar guy. Probably not the right guy to do something like that, you know. And I think I've actually answered questions about my favorite rhythm sections in various different genres and stuff before. From John Braun, love to see a beer show. There's like 4 people who said that. See, I've opened my mouth and I've opened the floodgates. Yeah, I might do one of these days. Plus, would like to see a top 10 Doors show. Thanks for your efforts. They are much appreciated. I actually just confirmed yesterday that my buddy Steve Keeler from Rock Fantasy and I are going to do a Doors top 10 song show, I believe, the week after next. So that's coming. From Joseph Edwards. Hey, Pete, I haven't watched all of your videos, but I'm getting there. I find that we have very similar sensibilities when it comes to music. 3 bands that I haven't heard you mention are The Gods, Circus of Power, and Static X. While none of them achieved a lot of success, I feel they have a lot of heart and some pretty decent songs. What do you think? The Gods are pretty cool. I like that first Gods album quite a bit. Good hard rock or biker rock, whatever the hell you want to call it. Circus of Power never did a lot for me. I actually saw them live back in the day. Jesus, who did they open up for? I don't even remember. A long time ago. Static X, I'm not big on. I don't know. Kind of a unique band. I saw them live. I think I saw them with Slipknot, if I'm not mistaken. Geez, I don't even remember. It's a shame he's gone, but Wayne Static. But yeah, their music just never did a lot for me, unfortunately. Not my cup of tea. From Majid, if you have to choose top 5 albums with Ronnie Dio on vocals, what would your picks be? They have to be only 5. Boy, you are a demanding guy, aren't you? All right, easy answer here. Rainbow Rising, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, Dio, Holy Diver, Black Sabbath, Mob Rules, Rainbow, Long Live Rock and Roll, and Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Is that 5 or is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's 6, sorry. Take out the first Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow album, there you got 5. So Rainbow Rising, Rainbow, Long Live Rock and Roll, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, Mob Rules, and Dio, Holy Diver. Creme de la creme of Ronnie James Dio right there, folks. From Indie Cult 777, hey Pete, I know you're not a Dylan fan, but where do you stand on Tom Petty? I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the hits, but I find the deep tracks to be very, very nice. I don't mind Tom Petty. There's just an accessibility and a just kind of really cool Americana vibe to Tom Petty's music. I have, I never went out and bought any of his albums, but I always liked hearing them. I never saw him live. Wish I did, obviously, now. But I bought like maybe, 10 years ago or something like that. I bought a really good like 2-disc anthology that's got so many great songs. It's just amazing how many like radio songs this guy, how many songs you heard everywhere over the years from that guy. I really like some of the early stuff. I mean, that Damn the Torpedoes album is pretty damn good. But I don't mind Tom Petty. Every now and then I like listening to Tom Petty. He's one of those kind of, singer-songwriter kind of guys that I really don't mind much. But Dylan, I just can't get into Dylan. I hate Dylan's voice. His songs just don't do anything for me. And I know a lot of people love him, so I'm not going to bash him, but it's just not for me. From Aaron Proctor, I have 2 questions. What of the many Buckethead releases would you recommend? You know what? I don't own any Buckethead solo albums. I have a couple albums that he played on, but I don't own any Buckethead releases, so I really can't recommend. Second question, Ray Gillan is possibly my favorite singer, but Badlands albums are out of print. Rumored to be because he knowingly infected others with AIDS. I enjoy Ryan Adams, and now he's in the news for his treatment of women. So my question is, do you have any difficulty listening to or even buying albums by people who have done something that you have a moral issue with? I try very hard to separate myself from that. So, to me, Ray Gillan was an immense talent that left the world way too soon. And from what I've heard, yes, he, had AIDS, knew he had AIDS, and was still sleeping around with woman after woman for, a long time. And that's not cool. However, I love the fucking music of Badlands, right? So I still listen to Badlands. And I'm, what are you going to do? Ryan Adams, I could care less about, so this, I'm not going to comment there. But there's, I know people who used to be huge Bruce Springsteen fans, and then they hate the fact that he has gotten so political in recent years and is very outspoken about all this stuff, and they stop listening to Springsteen. You know what? If that's what he wants to spew about, fine. I like it. I like some of his music, So there's a lot. Yeah, it's hard, back. How about like Dave Holland? The former drummer from Judas Priest, all those allegations of him being a child molester and got sent to prison and stuff. I didn't stop listening to Priest or Trapeze because of what Dave Holland may or may not have done. So to me, I try to separate myself from it. I just don't, it's like, all right, whatever, that's different. I'm just going to listen to the music. So no, I don't just stop listening to the music because, they may have done something terrible. Now all this talk about the Michael Jackson film, documentary, whatever, on HBO, and how, now all these people are coming out and saying, Michael Jackson abused them, so on and so forth. If it's true, yeah, it's terrible, but we all knew Michael was a little touched in the head, right? But the guy made a lot of great music, so I haven't stopped listening to Mike. Not that I listen to Michael Jackson much, but I don't dislike any Michael Jackson. But I'm not going to not listen to Michael Jackson if the situation arises. If I'm out somewhere or I have satellite on or Spotify or whatever, and Michael Jackson comes up, I'm not going to stop listening to go because of the HBO thing about what all those people said. So that's just me though. But I know that there are people who are like, oh no, sorry, done with Michael Jackson. So whatever. From Jamie Laszlo, I'd just like to make a statement this week. I bought Remember the Future by Nektar at a records show today based on only on the cover. And wow, is it freaking good. Like, where have you been all my life kind of good. Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Let me guess, is this your first time listening to Nektar? Because I know I've talked about Nektar quite a bit, and I mentioned that album a couple, I think on the concept album show. Yeah, that's a great band. And in fact, if you're going to do that, you might as well go get a bunch of their early albums. Actually, there's not a bad Nektar album at all. So if you really like Remember the Future, I highly recommend you go get a bunch of other ones. Great, great band. From Tom Fisher. Hi, Pete. Great show. What are your thoughts on the band GTR with Steve Hackett and Steve Howe? I dig it. I like it. I think it could have been better, but I think it's a solid, solid album. Second part of Tom's question. Did the other members go on to other prog or rock projects? I always enjoyed the album. Was surprised Howe and Hackett did not collaborate on their projects. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of ego there at the time, right? And because I think that would have been a nice kind of union to continue on a little bit more, but it just did not. Obviously Steve Howe was pulled back into Asia, and and then eventually Yes Again, and Hackett's just been doing his own thing. But Max Bacon, who was the vocalist. He actually sang also for the Phenomena project, which had, Glenn Hughes and the Galley brothers, which is very cool. Jonathan Mover, the drummer, he actually, he played with Frank Gambale and Joe Satriani. I believe he played with the Tubes, and Robert Berry, was in the Power to Three with Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer. So yeah, those guys went out and did a bunch of other stuff with like pop acts and stuff. So, but good stuff. From Birdwatcher 102, hey Pete, do you know Tokyo Blade? The first two albums are killer material. I actually owned both of those on LP back in the day. And yeah, they were quite good. But since I got rid of all my LPs and I've never replaced them on CD, probably should look into that because they were a pretty damn good band. One of those early 80s bands that you just don't hear enough of anymore. From Gear Laden Lad. I really appreciate your answers to my questions. I was just wondering if you were a fan of Vandenberg's music. If so, have you any of those albums? I have the first three Vandenberg albums. I like them quite a bit. The first one, obviously, is a classic. I saw them live, too, on that tour. Great. And I like the other two as well. Third probably is the weakest of the three, but yeah, the first two are red hot. Yeah, I've always been a fan of Adrian's playing, and that was a really good band. From Kim Omaki. It's likely a really niche kind of interest held only by a few, but I wonder if there'd be anything to be gained by doing a survey of debut plus sophomore album comparisons. We hear about plenty of sophomore cursed records that follow stunning first albums, but I'm curious of how many two-album streaks have occurred. Of course, I have one that I think fits the bill. Cockney Rebels, The Human Menagerie, and The Psychomoto maintain excellence overall. I've never heard either of those. I enjoy these Q&A vids. Thanks. P.S. I'm a huge fan of Terje Ripdahl, especially the Sandre album. How about you? Yeah, I love Terje Ripdahl. It's a great album. He's got a lot of great albums. Back to your original question. I urge you to go and like and check out our Facebook page because I've been doing just that for the last 2 weeks. I'm going to continue for probably the next month. We're doing daily polls comparing dynamite debuts and really strong sophomore albums and kind of having people vote on which is their favorites of the two. So we've been doing Sabbath and Zeppelin and Yngwie Malmsteen and oh my God, so many. The list is long, and we've done. You can go back and you can look at all the polls and stuff and see which ones we've done. So, and it's gotten a lot of good dialogue from our viewers and readers who are talking about why they like what they like between the first two. Santana, all sorts of releases. I think we did Metallica, if I remember correctly. We did Megadeth, and we're going to be doing Dio and Ozzy and all sorts of stuff. So go check out our Facebook page because that's what we're doing there. From CDH440, hi Pete. Hey, do you have anything by Presto Ballet, Kurt Vanderhoof's side band? He's such a massive talent. Amazing how he has the prog rock vision down so well. Yeah, and Kurt's a very nice guy too. I haven't talked to Kurt in a while. I have all those Presto Ballet albums, and they're really, really good. If you love vintage 70s rock and even like some of the kind of like Styx, Kansas stuff, you'll love Presto Ballet. So just because he's a metal church, doesn't mean that everything he does is like kind of thrash metal or whatever. So I think Presto Ballet is a really good and a lot of really great analog keyboards. Really good band, Presto Ballet. From Bozidar Valentine. Have you heard of the band called Axel, Rudi, Pell? If you have, what's your opinion on their music? Maybe a favorite album songs. Thank you for the awesome channel. Oh yeah, I have a bunch of Axel, Rudi, Pell albums. I think for me, they had a string of albums that were really, really strong, like the Oceans of Time album, Magic, and the Masquerade Ball are all really strong. Kind of, if you like 80s Rainbow meets a little bit of Yngwie Malmsteen, like his first maybe Marching Out and the Trilogy and Odyssey albums. So the guitar player, Axel Rudi Pell is a really good guitar player. He's squarely in the kind of the Blackmore mold, a little bit of Malmsteen as well, and the music is kind of like that. So it's kind of very accessible. Not quite power metal, not quite progressive metal, kind of like a melodic rock type of thing with little, gothic touches, that sort of thing. Good, solid band. Arguably, a lot of people say that Axel has been putting out the same album for years and years and years, and a lot of his stuff is very similar, but very solid. You really can't say anything bad about any Axel Rudi Pell album. From Mark Williams, hello Pete, great show as always. What's your take on Raven? Their 80s albums are metal classics in my opinion. I don't know about classics. I mean, Raven's okay. I have their Live at the Inferno live album, which for me has probably some of the best material from those early albums. And I have a more recent album, Extermination, which is quite good. So I like them. I don't love them. They're kind of, for me, like Anvil. It's good, not top shelf metal from that period, in my opinion. All right, from David M. Pete, which of the following 3 songs would you mind never ever hearing again? Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, or Lynyrd Skynyrd's Freebird? I'll be honest with you. I think if I were to never ever hear those 3 songs again, I'd probably be kind of sad about it, because I don't need to hear any of those 3 more than once or twice or 3 times a year. But I think if I was never to hear them again, I'd be at a loss. Now, if you were to throw AC/DC's, Shook Me All Night Long in there, I would say I would definitely pick that, because I never need to hear that song again, ever. But these 3, you know what? They're classics for a reason. I don't mind hearing them. I just don't want to hear them all the time, obviously. Next question from David. I have also been trying to figure out for weeks the CDs on your shelf that are diagonally below Abacab. They are black with yellowish at the bottom. It looks like the spines make a picture. You know what? You are like the millionth person who's asked that question, and I'm going to point it out again. So we're looking right there. Well, we can't see it there. Hold on. All right. That actually are the Gillan remasters. So that's Ian Gillan you're looking at there. Okay, that's what that is. So, yeah, you put them all in order by release date, and that's Ian Gillan's face. It's got the bandana, the long hair. So that's what you see in there. In fact, also, you can't see it because Billy Gibbons is blocking them, but the free remasters all had Paul Kossoff on the spine. So if you put them all together, you can see Paul Kossoff. Pretty cool. What's your take on Chastain? I have his Jazz Fusion Next Planet Please, which I love. Any recommendations? Thanks for the great series. I love the BOC videos. Yeah, you and everybody else. My God. I could do BOC, Blue Oyster Cult stuff all day long, and it just gets like thousands of hits instantly. There's a lot of Blue Oyster Cult. For a band that's was never like a huge band, it's amazing how many Blue Oyster Cult fans there are out there that would love to watch me do stuff on them. So pretty cool. Anyway, back to Chastain. So I was a big David Chastain fan. Really good guitar player throughout the 80s and the early 90s. I think of some of the classic stuff you may want to check out. If you like the instrumental stuff, I would go for Instrumental Variations. That's a cool album. For the more band stuff with vocals, with Leather Leone on vocals, try, what else? Chastain, Ruler of the Wasteland, and The Seventh of Never. Those are both really good kind of metal albums. And then he did the CJSS band, which is also vocal-oriented, but really good. Praise the Loud is very good. So Ruler of the Wasteland, Seventh of Never, Praise the Loud, and Instrumental Variations. That's where I would recommend you go next. From NP, hey Pete, I'm probably too late for this week, but I'll try. Someone asked if you had heard a Sabbath bootleg last week. My question is this: what's your opinion on bootlegs? Do you think they hurt or help bands? For people like me, it's a chance to hear some bands in their prime when I was too young to see them live. Do you think the situation with bootlegs is better now that people can trade on the internet instead of having to buy them? Did you own them? Okay, I've been asked this question before, but I'll answer it. I don't have an issue with bootlegs. In a lot of instances, you have some great bands that play live all the time and just never release live albums, or sparingly release live albums. And there's, fortunately or unfortunately, some really good recordings out there from some classic performances from some bands. So I don't have a ton of bootlegs. I have some. I have some notable ones that I've gone out and picked up. In fact, I bought I bought a Led Zeppelin bootleg for the Blueberry Hill, LA Forum show from, God, what year was that? 1970, I think it was. And that's awesome, right? So I've seeked out some of these like legendary boots. But I don't, but I know I have friends who just, they're bootleg nuts. They just collect bootlegs like crazy, and some people are addicted to that. So if that's your thing, that's great. For me, I like doing select stuff because, you get too many. It's like all of a sudden you have a lot of the same set lists, a lot of the same shows. I know Deadheads love doing that sort of thing. But, there are some bands that allow you to do that nowadays. I mean, I remember the Allman Brothers right before they retired. You could go see an Allman Brothers band show, and then after the show, you go to the merch table and you sign up to get the recording of the show, right? So some bands like you to do it, some bands don't. So it's not up to me to decide. But I don't have an issue with it personally. Because from John Whitla, hi Pete, enjoy your show. Being from Oz, have you heard any of a band called Spectrum from the early '70s? Lots of albums and across a lot of genres, but always distinctive. Had a single off their first album called "I'll Be Gone." So I went and searched for. I couldn't find anything other than "I'll Be Gone," and that really didn't do a lot of me. It's kind of bluesy. A little folk, a little psych. It didn't really move me too much, and that's all I heard. So, from James Farrar, hey Pete, love your shows. I learn a lot about bands I've never heard of. Okay, to the question. Got to do a versus for you this time. First up, Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance versus Iron Maiden Number the Beast. Maiden wins that one. Next we go, Megadeth Countdown to Extinction versus Metallica The Black Album. Countdown wins that one, Megadeth. And lastly, this one should hurt your head. Deep Purple Machine Head versus Black Sabbath Volume 4. Ugh. That does hurt my head. You know what? If you were to say Deep Purple in rock, it'd be an easier answer for me. Or maybe a harder answer, I should say. But Volume 4 is my favorite Sabbath album. Machine Head is not my favorite Deep Purple album, so I'm going to go with Volume 4 on that one. Like I said, if you would have said in rock, a little tougher. But I love Machine Head, but it's not my favorite Deep Purple album. In fact, it's probably not my top 2, actually. So yeah, Sabbath wins that one. Going for strength of an album, which ones do you think are the better of the two? Thanks for your time. A beer show would be great. Another one with the beer. From Neil Bridgens, great show. Have you heard Rabbit, Trevor Rabin's South African band? Julian Laxton band or any other 70s South African bands? I think, Rabbit I have heard. I have a couple. My buddy Steve is actually has a bunch of Rabbit albums, and he maybe some recordings of those. That's pretty solid stuff. I haven't heard Julian Laxton, and I don't know if I've listened to any other South African bands from that era. From Anthony Ferrara, your favorite Mets player as a kid? Well, probably Darryl Strawberry. A kid. All right. So when Darryl was playing with the band, I was already into my 20s. So I'd say when I was, in the 80s, I would say Darryl or Keith Hernandez, right? Gary Carter as well. Those were my heroes from like the championship teams of or championship team, I should say, from the 80s. But when I was a kid, like in the 70s, probably Tom Seaver. I like Lee Mazzilli, right? So those are my favorites. From James Ferrante again. What do you think of classic songs being re-recorded by the original singer with some or no band members? I recently bought a K-Tel compilation of disco songs. I know, what should I expect? And didn't realize it was all re-recordings. These newer versions, although sounding like the original, greatly lack the magic of the original. On the flip side, I have a CD the same as above, and the songs, some live, did work well. Just like the question that was asked earlier about re-recording stuff. If that's what they want to do, fine. As long as you know going in that that's what you're buying into. Because I did once buy something that was like re-recordings, and I'm like, this is not what I wanted. I think it was, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, if they want to do it, fine. There's going to be a limited audience for that, right? You want the originals. That's what most of us are looking for. From, Tesseratengawian van Arnhem. Oh my God. Hoi, Pete, I like your show, especially your fusion jazz rock one from the 70s. What do you think of the great Frank Marino and Les Dudek? I love Frank Marino. I'm a huge Frank Marino fan. One of the greatest guitar players of all time. And I loved Les Dudek. I got to meet Les Dudek probably, 6 years ago or 5 or 6 years ago. Very nice guy. Another great player. His 70s output is fantastic. Two great players there. From Ben Rogers, great job as always, Pete. I have a couple quick questions for you, so let me dive in. I was wondering if you're a fan of Little Feat, and if so, what are some of your favorite songs or albums? If you've never heard the band, I will mention that original singer, Lowell George, was in Zappa's early 70s Weasel Rip My Flesh incarnation. Yeah, I'm well familiar with Little Feat. My last question is, are you a fan of Stanley Clarke's solo albums? I know you're a Return to Forever fan, but have you investigated any of Clarke's 70s or 80s albums? Back to Little Feat. Yeah, I love Little Feat. I have most of their albums, I believe. Waiting for Columbus, the live album, obviously, is great. Dixie Chicken, Sailing Shoes, Feet Don't Fail Me Now, the last record album. Time Comes a Hero, really good. Solid band. I dig them. Very different. You know, sometimes I'm in the mood for Little Feat. That's good, like summertime music listening. As far as Stanley Clarke goes, hell yeah. School Days is a great album. The self-titled Stanley Clarke album is a great album. I'm a big fan of Journey to Love. I kind of like the Time Exposure album, even though it's kind of funky and almost disco-y in spots. That's like an early 80s release. The Clarke Duke Project, I dig. Again, that's a little kind of R&B-ish for me, but there's some good stuff on there. I Want to Play For You is good. That's later 80s. Modern Man is a good album. And If This Bass Could Only Talk is the 80s album. I Want to Play For You is early, I believe, late 70s. If This Bass Could Only Talk is a really good album from the 80s. So I like a lot of the Stanley Clarke stuff. He's a great bass player. One of my favorite jazz bass players of all time. From Stephen Race. Hi, Pete. Love your Q&A shows and the history of 70s prog, classic rock, metal, and jazz fusion shows. We both have matching CD collections. First off, thanks for turning me on to the band's Blood Rock, Montrose, Cactus, and Toad. Love it. Cool. My questions are, ever heard of a band called Truth and Janie? Their 75 album called No Rest for the Wicked. I have that. That's quite a good album. That kind of, to me, that's kind of like an extension of Cream, right? So if you like Cream and are lamenting the fact that they only did those couple albums or whatever, go get the Truth and Janie album. Quite good. Second, or a German hard rock band called Die Shin with a 1972 self-titled album. So that's spelled D-S-C-H-I-N-N. And he says, take the Kinks and throw in some Deep Purple and Blue Cheer. This is a strong and solid album with a great positive late 60s vibe, yet heavy. These discs are great from top to bottom. Your thoughts? Okay. I had never heard that band before, and I went and listened to them here on YouTube. Dynamite. So I have them in my Amazon cart. I am going to purchase that. Really, really good stuff. Pretty heavy. Love the Hammond organ work. Great guitar work. Dig it. Thanks for that. From Tate Davis. Hello, Pete. My question this week has to do with Rod Evans. What is your favorite vocal performance by him from both Deep Purple and Captain Beyond? I hope we Purple fans will hear from him at some point since he's basically disappeared off the face of the earth for almost 40 years. Dude, I don't think you're ever going to hear from him again. He couldn't even show his face for the induction ceremony for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's not coming out of hiding. There's all sorts of rumors about what he's doing. Some say he became a doctor, or who knows. I don't think you're going to see him again. I honestly don't. But anyway, back to the question at hand. From Purple, my favorite vocal from him on a Purple album is Bird Has Flown, off of the self-titled Deep Purple album. As far as Captain Beyond, that whole album is great. But Raging River of Fear might be my, either that or Dancing Madly Backwards, right? Either or. But Raging River of Fear, killer vocal, killer song. From Scott McGregor. Hey, Pete, have you ever heard of the band The Seven Sevens? They started in the early 80s. They are pretty eclectic and definitely have a unique sound. Their live album, 88, is at the top of my favorite live albums of all time. And they played on the excellent Tommy Bolin tribute album, Mr. Bolin's Midnight Revival. Their album, Drowning with Land in Sight, has a great version of Nobody's Fault But Mine. So I went and listened to the live album just to kind of check it out. Yeah, it didn't do anything for me. It's kind of bluesy rockabilly thing. I honestly, dude, I didn't like it. Sorry. From Alora Loves Darkness, my questions for you are, except the first album. I kind of like a few songs. Yeah, it's not bad. It's just, it's not the Except we came to know, right? To me, it reminds me of kind of like Uli, John Roth era Scorpions Light. All right, not quite as successful, obviously, but it's not bad. Some good tunes. Raven, as a whole, I just answered the Raven question from someone else. I don't dislike Raven. I'm not a huge fan. And Coney Hatch from Canada. I've never listened to any Coney Hatch albums. Probably should. But I did see them live. They opened up for Iron Maiden like a million years ago, and they honestly didn't do a hell of a lot for me. But I know they have some fans. From Rand Kelly, what's up, Rand? One of my favorite bands is King's X, but I haven't found anything in your videos yet. If you are a fan and own everything like I do, would you please do their history of it? If not, how about a top 10 songs? Thank you for making these videos and turning me on to new music, and I love watching them. I'm not a huge King's X fan. That's why you don't hear me talk about them, or I haven't done any kind of videos on them. I have, I think 2 or 3 King's X CDs, And they're one of those bands that, and I've been asked this question a million times over the years. They're one of those bands that everybody looks at me and goes, "Oh my God, how is like King's X not one of your favorite bands? You're so like, that style of music is so you." And I'm like, King's X just never did it for me. I don't dislike them. You know, the Gretchen album is great, and the Dark Planet album is great, and you know, Dogman is great. Great meaning they're enjoyable albums. But they're just a band that I just don't reach out for very often, and I don't ever have a need to want to listen to them. I know it's kind of weird. I don't know what it is, because I always liked Ty Tabor's guitar playing, and some of the songs are really cool. You know what it is? Doug Pinnick's vocals just kind of don't sit well with me for whatever reason. I think it has to do with his vocals, because I know a lot of people love his singing, and it's not like he's a bad vocalist. It's just, for me, it just doesn't do it for me. I know. Don't shoot the messenger, right? It's just like, you know, he did that project with Eric Gales recently, you know, a couple of years back. And I love Eric Gale's guitar playing, and his guitar playing is great on those albums, but just Doug's vocals they just don't do it for me. I don't know. What are you gonna do? So like I said, can't like everything. From Carl Fritz, would you ever do a video of your favorite album covers? Yeah, actually. That's on my long list of things to do. I'm going to do like a favorite album covers show. I just haven't gotten to it. It's on my list to do, my friend. From Comic Book Crazy. Hey, Pete, thanks for all the great videos. I have a question, and while it might seem strange, I'm totally sincere in asking it. You have such great band t-shirts, and all of them look pristine. No rips or tears, no faded graphics, etc. Do you have any washing, drying tips for how you keep your tees looking so great? So great, thanks. Yes. Don't wear them all the time, all right? I have so many of them. So you may see me wearing this one today, and I may not wear it again for a couple months. Okay, so I don't wear them. It's not like I have 10 of them and I wear them all the time. I've got a shitload. Some tricks, okay, tips. When you first buy a shirt, okay, wash it. Turn it inside out. Wash it. Don't dry it. Hang it up. Always that first time when you buy it. Never put it in the dryer the first time you buy a t-shirt, okay? Hang it up to dry. After that, you can put it in the dryer, okay? But always do the graphic inside out, okay? And keep them folded in a nice place, and they'll last you for years and years and years, all right? You know, back when I was a teenager, I had lots of cool rock shirts, band shirts that I bought at concerts and what have you, and none of them lasted throughout the decade because I wore them all the time. Constantly, and I didn't have as many as I have now. So, and I just, you know, so now it's like I wear them selectively, and they because I have so many, they don't get. It's not like I wear the same one week after week after week. So just take care of them, and they'll last you a long, long time. Good question from Garrett Munton. I've got two questions again. First, since you were talking about Steve Miller, what do you think of Boz Scaggs' solo career as he was with him early on? Second, do you like the band Bread? Other than their hits, they've got some great albums. I have a Boz Scaggs compilation, you know, Lido and a handful of other tunes I think are just great, great songs. I like Boz Scaggs. He's a good listen. I'm not a huge fan, but I do like a lot of Boz Scaggs songs. Bread, I have a Bread compilation. Yeah, I kind of dig it. It's not great. It's not something I reach for that often. But pleasant enough stuff, right? Good 70s music. From Alex L. My question was complex last time. No wonder you did not answer. I will simplify it this time. It will cost you 5 minutes of your time. Anyway, I'm going to skip it. He's got like a huge paragraph here. We're running low on time here. So the band is Smack, S-M-A-K. I don't know exactly where they're from. He basically begged me to listen. Alex begged me to go online and listen to this album, and specifically like a song from this album. So Alex, I did. Really good album. I thought the musicianship was top-notch, guitar and keys. Vocals were a little high-pitched at times, a little grating in some spots, but I really liked it, and I'm probably going to pick that up at some point. Really good band. Again, the band is called Smack. What was the name of the CD here? Their first album? Oh, Jesus. Maybe it's just Smack. I don't remember the name of the album. But anyway, a good one, guys, so check it out. Really good prog album. From DT, hi Pete, was wondering what your views were on the Canadian prog band Saga. I'm a big fan, but would love to hear your take and maybe your list of favorite albums. Maybe you're not a fan at all. Keep up the great work. Dude, are you not watching my channel? I don't know when you posted this question, so could be after the fact. But I just posted a Saga Top 10 Songs show just the other day, so check it out. From Majid, again, guys, 1 or 2 questions per episode. What do you think of Deep Purple's Abandon and Bananas? And by comparing them with the others, where would you rank these two? As far as all the albums or just the Morse era albums? I like Abandon a lot. And I like Bananas. I don't think Bananas is near the top of the Morse era Purple albums. Abandon is up there. I think if you're talking about the Morse era albums, I think for me, Perpendicular, Infinite, and Now What are probably my 3 favorites. But I think Abandon ranks right after that. I like Abandon's pretty rockin' album. Bananas is probably near the lower level of some of the Morse era albums. But I like it, okay? As you know, I'm a huge Purple fan, so I like all this stuff. From Bill Goodwin, hey Pete, as a big Savatage fan, any chance of getting Mr. Cafferty to do a top 10 Savatage tunes or a best to worst albums with you? I'm going to ask him, my friend. I'm going to ask him. From Anthony Ferrara, what Peter Hamill solo albums are in your collection? I have In Camera, Nader's Big Chance, Fool's Mate, Chameleon in the Shadow of Night, Over, The Future Now, PH7, and a Black Box. So I got a good amount of his 70s albums. From One Ring DHS. Pete, I know you mentioned that you like Bruce Springsteen's music. What are your thoughts on his 70s catalog? I dig it. Greetings from Asbury Park is a very strong debut, but man, he knocked it out of the park on The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. I love that album. I love Born to Run, and I love Darkness on the Edge of Town. For me, that's prime Springsteen right there. The River came in 1980. I'm not a huge fan of The River, but I liked all those albums I just mentioned. I dig quite a bit. From Scott Kilpatrick, what is your opinion on Happy the Man? I'm just discovering them now. They were really good. What is your opinion? I've talked about Happy the Man before on some of my prog shows, prog albums of the 70s. I'm a big fan of Happy the Man. Love him. Good mix of like classic 70s prog and little jazz fusion. Really good band. I got to see them live too at Nearfest. That was awesome. Also, have you ever heard of Fantomas with Mike Patton and Dave Lombardo? Your opinions? I heard some of that stuff a while back. Didn't do a lot for me. I like Mike Patton and Faith No More, but I really haven't liked a lot of his stuff that he's done outside, like Mr. Bungle. It's just it's a little out there. But maybe I should go revisit. It's been a while. From Peter Brickley, hello Pete, these are ones you might like. Omega the Prophet, Arcan Row, a Canadian band, Crossfire, Second Attack, Visitors, a French prog act, and Ermin's Way. Let us know what you think. Also, I forgot Galaxy, Day Without the Sun, a Florida group. I like the Omega. That's pretty good. Crunchy metal, crunchy hard rock. The Crossfire album I remember seeing, way back in the mid-'80s. I remember seeing that album in Rock Fantasy in Middletown, New York. That's a pretty good, kind of speed metal, thrashy album. That's pretty good. The Galaxy, that was okay. Kind of psychedelic. Had some heavy moments. Didn't really do a lot for me. The other stuff I had never heard before. From Anthony Peralt, Pete, we had a place in the 80s where I grew up in Bradenton, Florida called the Rock and Crown Lounge. They had local bands and name bands that played there. I saw Leslie West, Robin Trower, Joe Perry, and Axe there. Do you have any place like that where you grew up? Yeah, the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's the place. That's the only place in this entire Hudson Valley area, to my knowledge, that consistently over the years has had local and name bands all the time, and they still do. I still go there. From H Metal Justin, hey Pete, any plans on doing a top 10 songs or best or worst for Marillion? As I already mentioned, yes indeed. Top 10 songs from Marillion coming up in the weeks ahead. From Brian Slade, ever listen to Laurie Anderson? She's really worked with such great artists as Peter Gabriel, Adrian Belew, and was married to Lou Reed. Her work is completely out there, but she keeps you hanging on with her every word. Nah. Yeah, completely out there. It says it right. Yeah, that she's too weird for me. Sorry. No, thank you. From Lodge Blackman, hey Pete, what are your top 5 favorite Prince albums, and what is your favorite song off each one? All right, this is a kind of tough question here, but I'll try to rip through these. From Purple Rain, Let's Go Crazy. From Around the World in a Day, Temptation. From Chaos and Disorder, I Like It There. From Lotus Flower, how about Dreamer? That's a pretty cool album and a good rockin' tune. And Around the World in a Day, Raspberry Beret. From Indie Cult 777, hey Pete, one follow-up for my question on 223. You've never heard of Godly and Cream from 10cc or the band Sparks? Yes. All right. So that was a mistake by myself. For some reason, and it happens, man. You're going through these, these shows are so long and you just get a little tongue-tied after a while. I have heard of Godly and Cream, obviously, the guys from 10cc. I've never listened to the Godly and Cream albums. So for whatever reason, I just forgot that your question involved the band Sparks, and I just kind of threw that at the end there. I actually have a whole bunch of Sparks albums on CD. kind of a weird, quirky band, but I do like them. I think I have like 5 or 6 Sparks albums on CD. Very unique band. Very unique band. From Jeffrey Hayes, hey Pete, I just discovered your channel, enjoy it very much. On a somewhat serious subject, there have been a number of musicians and fans who have gotten hearing loss or tinnitus from numerous concerts. Pete Townsend, Eric Clapton, Ozzy, etc. And recently read about Huey Lewis, who became severely depressed from tinnitus and ended his performing. Have you had experienced people who have gone through this, and do you wear earplugs to concert? I think there isn't just enough awareness about this and how serious it could be. Yeah, I actually have a very close friend who is going through this right now. So yeah, this is very serious. And I wear earplugs. If I'm going to a big arena show, I generally don't, because it tends not to be that loud there. But I have for years. If I go to a club and I know it's a loud band that's playing like a hard rock or metal band, I wear earplugs because, man, you can do a lot of damage. And I've noticed, too, like when I'm here like playing guitar and I turn my amp on, turn the Marshall on, I don't play it that loud because you're standing only, even if it's like a 15 or 20 watt amp, you're standing 5 feet away from that amp. That's not good for the ears. So you gotta be careful with those ears, guys, you know. From Jonas Hellberg, have you heard the Australian bands Band of Light, Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, Buster Brown, Buffalo, Chain, Carson, Colored Balls, Divinals, Skyhooks, and the Saints? If so, what are your thoughts? Oh my God, getting so many people asking me about Australian bands. Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs are pretty good. What else? Buffalo, I love those first 3 Buffalo albums. Good underground, heavy rock proto-metal from the 70s, man. Check them out. The Divinals, I think I answered a question about that a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they're kind of cool. The rest of these bands I've never heard of, my friend. From Todd Stevens, hey Pete, here's perhaps your next unknown rock prog Canadian group from the 70s, Lynx. Ever hear Old Man, which is prog and has a Frank Marino with the Styx Chaser kind of feel to it? I had never, and I went on to our YouTube right here. Great thing to do. And I listened to those first 2 albums. They're very good. I'm going to get those. That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much for the Lynx recommendation. From Patrick Michaels, what's your opinion of Lou Reed, Rock and Roll Animal, and Live? Also, can you do a show about best concept albums, and what do you think about Jesus Christ Superstar? I don't have Rock and Roll Animal, but I have the Live album. That's damn good, right? Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner, man. That's all you need to say there. Also, can you do a show about best concept albums? I've already done it. Go into the playlist, okay? History of Best of playlist. I did an entire episode on my favorite concept albums. What do you think about Jesus Christ Superstar? The original, love it. I'm a Gillan fan, right? I think he killed it on that. I've loved that for decades. From Paul Chapman, just stumbled upon your channel given your BOC album list. First, I think that your list of underrated musicians here would make one impressive supergroup. Cool. My question is, are you familiar with Virgil Donati's Just Add Water album and his On the Verge project album named Serious Young Insects? 6 degrees of separation, just follow the associations. Tommy Emmanuel has done plenty of electric guitar stuff over the years. Check it out. I loved Virgil. He's a great player. I have not heard any of those albums, Paul. I'll go have to investigate. From Lisa T, in your opinion, what's the worst song Jethro Tull ever did? Well, you know, I'm going to go back to that awful Under Wraps album. You know, Nobody's Car is terrible. Paparazzi's kind of terrible. I'm not a huge fan of the .com album. It's okay. I don't like the title track much. And that Hot Mango Flush, not very good. From Matty Ball Walker, what's your opinion of Iron Maiden's albums from 2000 to present with Bruce Dickinson rejoined, and would you go see them live playing a set list from just this period alone? I would. I've actually stated that before. I'm a big fan of Brave New World and On. Love all that stuff. I would love to see. Would totally love to see it. I'd pay for that. From Niels B, hey Pete, thanks for your answer to my question on the last show. How do you get into prog music? Where do I start? I'm into rock and hard rock, but I find it hard to listen to prog rock. I tried with Vandenberg Jenner. Well, that's not the best place to start. I love Vandenberg, but that's something you get into later on after you've accepted a lot of other stuff. I would suggest Yes, Close to the Edge and Relayer, Genesis, Foxtrot, Nursery Crime, or Selling England by the Pound, maybe The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. From King Crimson, especially if you're a hard rock guy, go check out Red. Go check out Lark's Tongues and Aspic. Go check out Discipline. Then maybe investigate Gentle Giant, Freehand, Power and the Glory, Octopus, Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick, Aqualung. All right, start there. Let me know what you think. From John Doe, hey Pete, in your opinion, why do you think Nazareth's career never reached the heights of AC/DC's? Manny Charlton is on par with Brian May and Page, yet he's virtually unheard of by mainstream publications. To me, they never survived the 80s. Well, I mean, I love Manny, and I love Nazareth. I don't know if Manny's definitely on par with Brian May and Page, but he's a very good player. I think the problem with Nazareth, again, I think Nazareth's peak stuff was in the 70s, right? And, well, they did a fair amount of business in the 70s, but I think that the problem, Nazareth stylistically were like all over the place for a while, like especially like in the 80s. They started, a lot of mellow stuff. They tried to get commercial, never quite picked on. I honestly, I don't know why. I think Nazareth did some great kind of like, poppy commercial stuff in the early 80s that could have and should have been hits, but you got that rough and ready gravelly vocals of Dan, and yeah, you could say that Brian Johnson's vocals were almost identical in AC/DC, but different type of audience. I think here's the thing. I think if Nazareth would have stuck to heavy material in the 80s, they would have been better off. I think their heavy stuff was in the 70s, and I think, obviously the 80s was great for heavy music, and Nazareth really weren't doing heavy music in the 80s. So that was a big fail on their part. I think they should have continued on. They did that No Mean City album in, 78 or 79, which is great and heavy, and then, like, everything they did after that was, like, really poppy when all the other bands were getting heavier again. So I think that's why. I think if Nazareth would have stuck to their guns and continued doing the heavy rock stuff in the 80s, we would be talking about them totally different light today. Last question from Mike F. Hey Pete, thank you for answering my questions in the last few weeks. The Q&A, as are the whole SOT is the best. There was an online CD store called Buccaneer Records in Baltimore. The man who ran turned me a lot of new music. I am into power prog metal. Can you give me 2 or 3 new bands to get into? Also, do you like female-fronted power metal bands? Dude, I'm sorry if I'm reading, I don't know, a lot of what you're writing here doesn't make a lot of sense, but are you asking for recommendations on newer power and prog metal bands? Okay, so I don't know how newer these are going to sound to you, but I'm going to throw some notes. So Haken from the UK, Seventh Wonder, Tomorrow's Eve, Borealis, Brainstorm, Spirits of Fire, which is the new kind of like power metal project with Chris Caffrey from Savatage and TSO, and Tim Ripper Owens and Steve DiGiorgio and Mark Zonder from Fate's Warning. I recommend that. I mean, we can do others, but that's, some stuff. Some of these bands have been around for a number of years, but they're newer. As far as the female-fronted power metal bands, I mean, there's so many of them. I like Epica, I like Nightwish. Battle Beast is okay. Unleash the Archers, pretty good newer band. Seven Kingdoms have a female singer now. They're a pretty good band. Visions of Atlantis, not bad. There's so many female-fronted power and symphonic metal bands. It's crazy. So anyway, that's it, guys. So leave your questions in the comments and feedback below. I'll get to them. Hopefully we'll do another one in a week or two. And this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. Excuse me. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Over here, of course, we're on the mighty YouTube as often as possible. A lot of good stuff coming up. We got Butch Jones and myself, Thin Lizzy, Best to Worst albums, Wild Bill and myself doing top 10 songs of Jimi Hendrix. All this stuff coming up this week, so stay tuned, and we'll see you again. Take care.